Greetings and welcome to episode 2 of this special 4-part series on association matters titled Oceania Insights on this official PCAAE podcast for conversations on governance, leadership, and impact in the association sector. We are your hosts. I'm Bobby.
And I'm Emily. The topic for today's podcast is Leadership for Impact, Building High-Performing New Zealand Association Executives. Effective association leadership requires more than technical expertise. It demands vision, adaptability, collaboration, and the ability to inspire stakeholders. This episode examines how association executives in New Zealand navigate complex environments, lead organisational transformation, and create lasting value for members and communities.
New Zealand has consistently demonstrated association leadership models characterized by collaboration, trust-based leadership, stakeholder engagement, adaptive management, and long-term thinking, which align closely to the needs of association leaders across the Philippines and in Asia. So joining us today is Brett Jeffrey, CAE, who is the Executive Director of the New Zealand Society of Association Executives.
As Executive Director, Brett works with association leaders, boards, and sector partners across New Zealand to strengthen capability, visibility, and impact for associations. Brett is a certified association executive with extensive experience in membership, events, partnerships, governance support, and association leadership. Through NZSAE, he is focused on building a stronger professional community for those who lead and manage associations, while raising awareness for the important role associations play in supporting industries, professions, communities, and the wider New Zealand economy.
So welcome, Brett, and thank you for gracing our podcast today. So let's start our conversation. From your perspective, what leadership competencies are most important for association executives in today's rapidly changing environment?
Yeah, that's always an interesting one, isn't it? Because, you hit the nail on the head when you say the rapidly changing environment, because I think what we did a couple of years ago is completely different to what we're doing now. When it comes to association management, we're dealing with more demanding members, financial pressure. I think that's not just with associations, that's just throughout the world at the moment. We go from one financial crisis to another, and that's definitely affecting associations. Technology's changed. Who would have thought that we would be doing a podcast 5 years ago? Now we're doing them all the time. Advocacy demands. We've got government changes. We've got every single year, every second year, you just about get a new board. So as an association manager, how do you change those complexities and show leadership in that space? And that's really, really hard.
It sure is. There is a lot changing.
There's a lot changing. And it's, I wish there was a good answer. And it's like, I think as an association leader and leaders, all of us, you need to be an entrepreneur. You need to be ahead of the game all the time. If you're doing the same thing that you're doing 3 years ago, you are 30% behind the times. So you need to change what you're doing, probably how to engage your membership. Let's say 10% every year. Otherwise, in 10 years' time, you're probably going to have to change it 100%. So let's look at the goalposts all the time. I think that's really important.
I think what stands out for me there, Brett, is needing to be adaptable. Would you say that's a fair call for leaders in New Zealand today?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's adaptable for everything. Technology, association demand. Well, actually, even advocacy demands. For New Zealand at the moment, we're heading towards an election. And with an election, you've got a government that's throwing out lots of government changes, lots of submissions. So they can turn around and go, this is what we've done. And that puts a lot of pressure onto membership organizations, associations, to actually adapt to the change and making sure that that change is proper for their respective sector, for their members. So, adaptability is paramount. Absolutely.
There is a lot shifting in our world today, isn't there? So our next
Yeah.
question is, how do associations in New Zealand develop and prepare for these future leaders within their organisations? Maybe you have a bit of a case study or a story to share on this one.
Yeah, look, and I think it's a worldwide problem. It's just not a New Zealand problem, isn't it? Is that no one wakes up in the morning and going, I'm going to be an association executive leader. You know, it's a
True.
it's a
Sad but
secondary
true.
yeah, it is sad but true, exactly right. You know, we fall into the job, don't we? You know, I know a friend of mine was a potato grower, and he became the Potato Growers Association CEO because they needed somebody. Then he became Horticulture New Zealand CEO, and then he got the job as Civil Contractors CEO, which is building roads and all that. So he went from a potato grower to running a multi-million dollar associate membership organization that builds roads and civil contractors and all that. So you could look at something like that. I think, but I think the challenge is also we can get government ministers coming in and running associations because of their lobbying and of their advocacy skills, which is a fair comment. But you have to also work out is that running an association is just not about advocacy. It's about how do we engage our members. It is through marketing. It is through comms. It is how I engage my membership is completely different to how the potato growers engage their membership, how civil contractors engage their membership. It's all different. So I know I'm sort of broaching the subject around how we prepare our future leaders. I think through our future leaders, you know, we give credit to Bobby, we give credit to me, we give credit to the associations of associations because we are actually strengthening associations in our respective regions. And we're doing that by doing podcasts like this, by actually teaching our future leaders how to be better association managers. So we know that, Bobby, when you and me have retired and we're drinking wine in the sun, that those future leaders that we've established, hopefully they don't fall into the job. They actually have a career path. And I think that's what we're doing now is so strong.
I know that NZSAE is also doing some training programs. You have conferences now, maybe networking events. So, of course, all of this help, right, in trying to build and develop future leaders of associations.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think we run over 50 events a year for our leaders. We are about to establish a future leader program, which is about 4 months away from being put out into the marketplace. So you're the first person to hear about it, or the first 3 people, plus everyone else that listens to this podcast, which is good. We're doing it.
Heard it here first. Love this.
Yes.
But through our events, we are strengthening people. But the challenges that we've got is that what does the certification look like? People these days are using their phones and they want quick recognition. They want micro credentials. They don't want to do a course over 10 years to get a certificate. They want something that's short, sharp, snappy. This is what we've done. But for us as leaders, we have to make sure that education is relevant to them, not relevant to what we think we are putting out to them. And I think that's the biggest difference.
Right. So, very good. Emily, you have follow-up questions or no?
No, I'm just really excited to hear more about this next generation course, Brett. This is going to be brilliant.
Yes,
a future leader program. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Because I don't want our future us's to fall into association management. I want it to be from the bottom up, not the top down. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
I know what you mean, Brett. I would love to see more of the next generation coming up through associations. It's something I'm particularly passionate about, and fantastic. Love that initiative. We won't go off on a tangent. We'll be here for an hour. Sorry, Bobby, next
Okay,
question.
And but like Tuma, so I know of a friend. I was just having lunch with her about 3 hours ago, and she first started off in an association, and she was just a marketing and communications manager. She went to a bigger association as the marketing and events person. Then she went to another association as the second in command.
Mm,
I don't want to mention her name, but I want to congratulate her because she's just got the CEO role for her initial association where she was.
wow, that's great.
Wow.
So
That's great.
that is cool. So
The
she's growing up from the ranks. Amazing,
the
Yes.
opportunity. I wish the next generation could learn more about the opportunity that there is between associations, because there is so much happening there. That's an incredible story. Congratulations to her.
Yes, 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 absolutely. Brett,
Yeah, yeah.
our third and final question is, from your experience, what practices contribute to a strong, productive relationship between association boards and executive teams?
Yeah, that's a definite passion of mine. I think as an operational, we run associations, right? I think
Mm,
it's actually putting up the hand to the board and saying to the board, you are strategic,
mm,
keep out of operations. And I
mm,
think that's the biggest thing. I think that's one of the biggest, not failures, but the biggest challenges that a lot of
mm.
people working in associations have is having a too operational board and not making the board strategic enough. I think even though they work closely together, I think they can work better and stronger if you've got an operational team and a strategic board, and
Right.
us as leaders are actually talking to the board going, what is the next strategy? What is that high level stuff that we're doing that filters into our business plan that the operational staff does moving forward? So we don't get caught up into the nitty gritty stuff because we need to be moving forward. I think that's really paramount. And I think it shows exceptional leadership from a lot of operational leaders saying to
Mm,
boards, you need to be strategic.
right. So,
Wouldn't
yeah,
you
this
agree?
should
I don't
be
know.
a
Do you have that problem in the Philippines or not?
Yeah,
No?
yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, this issue is universal, Brett. And yeah, there should be, there should be clarity. And in the case of PCAE, part of our onboarding is really to advocate for a model that is like, there's a strategic board who has its own responsibilities, and there's an executive team that handles day-to-day operations. So clarity and delineation of responsibility should be paramount in a good relationship between board and secretariat or management team, or sometimes they call it executive team, whatever you call it. So
Yeah.
there should be a clear delineation. So,
Yep.
Emily?
Like
How,
on Friday, which is in what's today? Today's Wednesday. So in 2 days' time, I'm having a conversation with an association that she approached me and has said that we've got a real problem where my board is not talking to the staff and we're really butting heads. So what do we do? How do we fix it? Brett, can you come and fix it?
Mm,
And that's the biggest challenge for any of us leaders going, well, how do you fix that problem? Because personalities get in the way.
right.
So how do you fix the personalities? So is it down? I think it's not because I'm not a mediator, If you
Mm,
know me, I'm a pretty straight shooter. But when you look at it, it's more like you need to have clear job descriptions. You need to have
mm.
clear lines of responsibility. And I think that's the first step in what anybody does, they need to do properly. Wouldn't you agree?
100% agree. 100%.
Anyway, sorry, Emily. Yeah, I interrupted your talking. Sorry
No,
about that.
no, please. That was it kind of answered the question I was going to ask, that what kind of general guardrails should there be between the boards and the executive teams?
Yeah, it's definitely like setting expectations, setting roles. But I think
Right.
the executive director has to have a really strong relationship with the board chair.
Yeah, right.
And they will work out what they want to do, whether it's I'm going to call you every week and have a meeting, or every 2 weeks, or email you, or contact, or
Mm,
whatever. But I think one of the biggest thing is that as operational, we don't want to give any surprises to our board chair or to our boards, because boards don't like surprises.
Right.
You know,
No.
a good friend of mine said that to me, and I always remember that. You know, never give the board surprises, because it just doesn't work very well. You know, but we need to get on with them, and it's communication. It's picking up the
Right.
phone. How you
Right.
going? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today, Brett. We wrap up the podcast with 3 key takeaways, like always. I'm going to do my best here. I feel like there was more than 3 in this episode, as always. But let's give it a go. So, number 1 takeaway I got there was leadership today is about being adaptable, not about having all the answers. So, the one thing that really stood out from Brett's perspective on the New Zealand association sector is that today's association leaders don't necessarily need to have the answer to everything, but they do need to be adaptable. So, you know, it's changing to member expectations, new technologies, financial pressures, and or evolving governance, and that the best leaders are the ones who stay focused on their purpose, but are willing to adjust how they get there. So I think it's a bit of a shift in you can't always rely on this is the way it's been done. As Brett said, we need to adjust that little 10% every year instead of waiting 10 years and having to adjust 100%. So the environment is changing too quickly for that, and we need our leaders to evolve with that. Key takeaway number 2 was that future leaders don't just appear. They need to be developed. So Brett highlighted that many people in New Zealand, you know, they find their way into association management by accident rather than a defined career path. So it's a challenge that many of us have across the Asia Pacific region, and that we can relate to. But we do want that strong future for our sector and to encourage that next generation of leaders. So we need to be intentional about developing them through mentoring, through learning programs, through giving people opportunities to build that leadership experience. And we give a lot of credit to the leaders of the governing bodies of associations of associations. And number 3 is great associations are built on partnerships and clear lines between the board and executives. Successful associations are about having a great a great CEO or a great board. It's about the relationship between the two, that there needs to be clear roles, trust, honesty, communication, and a real shared understanding, I think, of the organization's purpose and foundations to drive those better outcomes. I love Brett's final point that boards do not like surprises. So communication seems to be number 1.
Excellent, Emily, or as usual, your summation. And again, thank you, Brett, for providing your insights and for gracing our podcast today. So to thank also our audience for joining us in Association Matters, where governance, leadership, and impact come together. So this podcast is brought to you by the Philippine Council of Association and Association Executives, MEMBIS AMS, and Pricing for Associations.
Join us in our 3rd episode of Oceania Insights as we uncover the topic Leading the Digital Shift, Perspectives on AI, Innovation and Association Leadership. Subscribe to our next podcast and visit the PCAAE website for updates and full episode notes. Until next time, thank you for joining us, Brett.
Thank you, Brett.